want to talk about today is another improvised hunting implement that you can make, and this one's simply made out of paracord and bolts, and it is called a bola. It was used by Spanish cowboys for centuries to round up loose cattle and calves and things like that. It was also used by Inuit hunters and Eskimos, and I've heard mention of it being used. I've seen pictures from the 1600s of Indians actually using these in the southern areas of the United States, probably where Spanish contact was prevalent. So at any rate, what I've done here is I've taken one string that's about as long as my arm and tied it off, doubled it up, tied it off, put a loop in the end of it. I've tied another piece of cord that's about half that length in the end, or a little bit more, to that on the loop. And then I've tied 3 bolts to the end of that. Now, the secret to this thing is supposed to be that your center projectile is lighter in weight than the 2 ends. And that is supposed to make it open up in the air when it's flying. There's a lot of ways that you can throw this weapon, but what I've found is that if you put it between your fingers basically like this so that the middle one hangs down and the other 2 rest, and you hold it with your thumb, when you swing it around it doesn't tend to wrap up as bad. Now if you try to hold yourself still in one place like this and swing it around in circles, it's going to wrap up on you. You can tell by looking at that thing, it's wrapping up in my hand. So what you need to do is you need to use centrifugal force to throw this, basically in more of an arc pattern with your arm, which is going to cause you to have a lot of range of motion, very similar to like atlatls and things like that, Swiss arrows. So large game animals that are very aware are going to see things like that. But what I usually do with this is I try to get it so that my whole arm is swinging the weapon, so that when I let go of it, it lets go and it spreads out as it goes. And that one's spread out all the way wide. I just didn't throw it hard enough for as far away as my targets are. That probably would have wrapped around something's head, but you can see how devastating that thing can be if it hits right. I mean, that thing is wrapped around there 10 times. And whatever that thing hits, at the very least, is going to be struggling to get out of that. If it wraps around their head, neck area, or their upper torso, those things could probably be deadly in the right hands. Unfortunately, my hands aren't the right hands right now. There it is. Wham. That was good in there. I try to put the 2 long ones in the knot right there between my first 2 fingers and let it dangle in between like that and use that for my release. And then I just try to get a good centrifugal arc like this and then step into it. And you can see that wrapped around that tree a dozen times. So you can see what we got here. This thing's wrapped all around this tree and it's tied knots on itself and everything else. So if that hits the legs of a game animal, it's going to keep them from moving, and then you're just going to have to jump on them and immobilize them.